Amazing Waitress discovers hidden symptoms, saves billionaire's son just in time against all odds. Emma's heart raced as she navigated the crowded diner, balancing a heavy tray of pancakes with one hand while refilling coffee cups with the other. Cedar Grove pulsed with morning energy, but all she could think about was the mounting bills at home and her mother's relentless cough echoing through their thin-walled house. Every shift was a reminder of her dual life, the waitress cap tucked firmly over dreams of medicine buried deep beneath her apron. Would she ever escape this cycle? When she reached the corner booth, she caught sight of him, Jack, a striking figure cloaked in designer clothes that seemed oddly out of place in the diner's retro atmosphere. He sat there, brow furrowed, feet tapping anxiously. The sight of him pulled at something in Emma's chest. Did someone like him ever consider the sacrifices she made every day? With a quick, determined breath, she leaned in to pour him another cup of coffee, feeling something between them shift. "Long morning?" she asked, her usual cheerful tone rising even amidst her doubts. He looked up, surprised by the warmth in her voice. "You could say that." His faint smile didn't reach his eyes, which betrayed an overwhelming pressure she recognized all too well. His family's expectations clung to him like shadows. As he spoke, Emma felt a strange affinity with this man, their lives colliding in a moment they both desperately needed. But just as their conversations blossomed into a fragile bond, chaos erupted. Jack suddenly clutched his chest, his usually calm demeanor collapsing as he gasped for air. Time slowed. Patrons gasped, and Emma's stomach dropped. The world around her faded into a blurry rush of panic. The frantic call for help sent her mind racing. She knelt beside him, instincts sharpened by memories of her grandfather's stern yet gentle sage, and a torrent of information surged back to her. A rare condition, unfamiliar yet lingering, tugging at the corners of her memory. Would it be enough? The weight of uncertainty pressed on her chest, the doubts mingling with fear. The EMTs arrived, their professional demeanor instantly deflating the adrenaline that fueled her earlier confidence. "Is he breathing?" she shouted over the rising murmurs. "Yes, he's stable," they replied, but their dismissive glances toward her had an underlying tone of judgment. She was just a waitress, after all, and nobody. The swirling thoughts screamed for recognition. She could feel a storm of self-doubt brewing. What right did she have to challenge these professionals? Clenching her fists, she questioned her worth. Would they listen to her? Did they even care? Or would they brush her aside as easily as a used coffee cup? Before she could muster the courage to voice her theories, the gravity of the situation sank in. Unease slithered between each breath as the clock on the wall seemed to mock her, ticking down the precious seconds. The sterile hospital walls felt like an insurmountable obstacle, and with them came the fear of being overshadowed, of disappearing beneath the unbelievable weight of privilege Jack carried, while she struggled just to keep her head above water. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now, let's continue. As the conversation of medical jargon swirled above her, she felt each word cut deeper. With Jack's life hanging in the balance, she had to confront her deepest fears. Was she capable? Could she bridge this chasm that divided them? Her determination surged, pushing her to rise above the uncertainty that clouded her heart. She was not just a waitress. With fierce resolve setting in, Emma prepared to fight for Jack, unwilling to allow anything, especially her own fears, to stand in her way. Time was running out, And soon she would have to draw that line between the woman she had been conditioned to be and the one ready to challenge the status quo. Would she seize her moment or watch it slip away? The answer felt just out of reach, and the weight of regret pressed heavy on her shoulders. Emma felt herself teetering on the brink of transformation, caught between the expectations of a waitress and the buried aspirations of a future in medicine. The medic's hustling words faded into a muffled backdrop as she locked gazes with Jack. The urgency pulsed around them, an electric current that ignited something within her, a desperate need for acknowledgement. She reached for Jack's hand, squeezing it gently, grounding herself in the split-second connection. "He needs oxygen," she blurted out, her voice cracking through the tension. The EMTs turned, skepticism lined across their faces. Yet she felt emboldened by an unexpected fire. She summoned her courage. "I can help. I remember discussing it vaguely with the doctor. Something about respiratory issues. Hyperventilation, maybe?" The paramedic blinked, taking a step back as he reevaluated her. "Stay clear, ma'am. We've got this." There it was again, the wall she encountered time and time again, the invisible barriers that constructed the divide. And yet, the flicker of unyielding determination ignited a surge within Emma. "You've got 30 seconds, she pressed, her heartbeat roaring in her ears. "If we don't stabilize him, he might not make it." Her conviction carried an undeniable weight. She had never spoken with such authority before, like a hidden potential had finally unfurled. The elder EMT, finally struck by her intensity, paused. "Fine, what do you suggest?" Her mind sprinted back to snippets of anatomy lessons, her grandfather's tales of empathy interwoven with knowledge. "Get him to breathe into a paper bag. Hyperventilation leads to a loss of CO2. He needs to focus on breathing slowly." The room stilled, all eyes on her, the atmosphere thick with doubt and surprise. The nearer EMT nodded reluctantly, pulling out a bag from his first aid kit. Emma's heart pounded. Here was her moment. The process felt surreal, and in that instant she tapped into something deeper, the essence of who she was meant to be. As Jack's labored breaths began to ebb, she didn't just feel like a waitress. She felt like an emerging force, capable and powerful. But with each heartbeat, pieces of doubt still lingered, whispering fears of inadequacy. What if the EMTs were right? What if she was just a waitress after all? A smoldering mix of dread and realization coursed through her. She had stumbled into this knowledge, but did she have the right to claim it? As Jack slowly regained color, his eyes fluttering open, Emma could see recognition, a shared experience blinking through those dilated pupils. Were they both caught at the crux of their destinies, fighting against the identities imposed upon them? Once stabilized, Jack whispered a tentative, "Thank you," and for a fleeting moment she saw a reflection of herself in him, the burden of expectation weighing heavily on both their shoulders, yet glimmers of hope intertwined. The emergency team whisked Jack away, but Emma was left standing there, pulses of adrenaline still coursing through her. In a place where she felt like the underdog, she had challenged not only the professionals around her, but also she had dared her own limitations. In the aftermath, as she returned to her tables, the hum of the diner felt different. The usual clattering of cutlery and ambient chatter faded into the background, each sound transforming into a mantra of affirmation. If she could face these fearsome barriers, what else could she achieve? She envisioned herself behind a stethoscope, a realm where she could save lives without hesitation, a world bursting with potential. Then a familiar voice cut through her thoughts. "Emma, hey!" It was Jack, back from the hospital, looking better but still shaking. He approached her, determination written across his face. "Can we talk?" Emma's breath hitched, a confusing flurry of emotions coursing through her. Something was awakening within her, an unsettling yet thrilling premonition of a newfound partnership. What lay ahead was uncertain, but this was her moment to rewrite her story. With each step forward, the barriers she long accepted began to show cracks. As she prepared for an enveloping confrontation with what could be, a single thought emerged. The time had come to face not just her fears, but the truth. Could she truly leave the life of a waitress behind for one where she could claim her purpose? The very notion electrified her, arming her with a sense of purpose just waiting to be unleashed. Jack's eyes held an intensity that felt urgent, as if he sensed the magnitude of what had just transpired. "I owe you my life, Emma," he said quietly, sincerity flooding his expression. "You did something incredible back there." Her heart raced at his words, igniting a warmth that chased away the shadows of self-doubt swirling around her mind. Yet, with each affirmation came the weight of reality. "I didn't do it alone," she replied, her voice steadier than she felt. "It was a team effort, and you were strong enough to pull through." Jack tilted his head, studying her in a way that made Emma feel exposed. "Maybe," he said, "but your knowledge saved me." Saved. Those words echoed in Emma's thoughts, filling her with a mixture of pride and anxiety. For years, she had buried her aspirations beneath the daily grind of the diner, telling herself that being a waitress was enough. Now, faced with Jack's unwavering gaze, the budding potential within her began to unfurl, challenging the very narrative she had built for herself. "Let's grab coffee," Jack suggested, breaking her reverie. "I want to hear more about your background. This can't be just a coincidence." Her pulse quickened. She could feel her ambitions wrestling with uncertainty, the push and pull making her skin feel alive. "I'm just a waitress," she protested, the words tasting bitter in her mouth. Even now, the insecurities whispered inside her, reminding her of what she'd always been. "You're more than that," he replied fiercely, "and you need to believe it." The conviction in his tone twisted something deep inside her. She thought about the moments in the diner when the patients from the hospital would come in for their meals, speaking about their life-changing experiences. She had listened, fascinated, fantasizing about becoming part of their stories, knowing she could do more than serve coffee and take orders. "Okay," she found herself saying, surprising even herself. "Coffee it is." As they walked through the diner towards the door, Emma felt an uncharacteristic lightness in her step. The familiar clink of dishes and fragrant aroma of fresh food swirled around her, but the world outside beckoned with a promise she'd never fully engaged with, one of possibilities. Over steaming cups, Jack shared fragments of his life story, his struggles overcoming expectations set by his wealthy family, his drive to forge his own path. Emma listened, feeling an odd parallel between their experiences. Both had felt the pressure to fit into prescribed roles, to be what others expected. "You saved my life today," he said, his voice slowing, almost tender. "I know you can do more than this. Why not pursue it?" His words ignited a fire within her, a fierce determination that obliterated her lingering fears. She had spent so long fearing judgment that it had become a part of her identity. "I want to pursue medicine," Emma admitted, the confession flowing from her like a lifted weight. "But what if I fail? What if it's too late?" "It's never too late," Jack replied, leaning in closer. "You have the passion. All you need is direction. Let me help you find it." The sincerity in his offer made her heart leap. Could someone like him really care enough to guide her? The conversation spiraled deeper into the evening. One moment fueled her aspirations, the next produced shadows of self-doubt. She could hardly process the commitment she felt to take a step into the unknown, yet the idea of ownership over her dreams ignited a flame within her soul. By the time they parted ways, Emma was both exhilarated and terrified, standing at the precipice of a new beginning. She took deep breaths, savoring the smell of the coffee, feeling the pulse of possibility surge through her veins. As she lay in bed that night, sleep eluding her, a single thought crystallized in her mind. Was she ready to fight for what she truly wanted? The answer felt frighteningly elusive, yet tantalizingly close, a promise she'd never thought she could entertain so readily. And upon realizing that, she made a decision. Tomorrow, she would take the first step. But she needed to confront the looming specter of self-doubt before she could truly embrace her path. Little did she know, a shocking confrontation awaited her that would test everything she had just vowed to embrace. The morning light crept through the curtains, illuminating the corners of Emma's room with a soft glow. She lay still, staring at the ceiling, wrestling with the shadows of doubt that clung to her despite the clarity she had felt the night before. Jack's words echoed in her mind, reminding her of the potential she had buried so deep. Yet the fear of unmasking her true self loomed larger than the dawn. Rising from the bed, she felt the heaviness of resolve gingerly stepping in as her morning routine unfolded. Makeup applied, hair tucked neatly behind her ears, she caught a glimpse of herself in the mirror. Who was she trying to convince? The vibrant woman Jack had seen, or the cautious waitress who had kept her ambitions hidden away? That morning at the diner slipped by in a flurry of activity. Old habits and familiar faces made her feel momentarily comfortable. Yet each clink of a coffee cup drew her thoughts back to a future she dared to dream about. Emma moved through the day, feeling a persistent itch to do more, to be more. But still, she felt tethered to her current role as the waitress who refilled coffees and wiped tables, an identity that felt increasingly suffocating. During the slow period after the lunch rush, she stole the moment to breathe. With her apron tied snugly around her waist, she pulled out a notebook and started scribbling her ideas for what pursuing medicine would entail. The pages filled quickly with thoughts about classes, potential schools, and long-forgotten aspirations bubbling to the surface. The act of writing ignited a spark of excitement as her dreams materialized in front of her, one ink stroke at a time. Just when she felt a blooming optimism, the door swung open, and in walked a couple, their faces etched with worry. She recognized them immediately, the parents of a young boy she had served before, a slice of their reality rushing back to her. The father was a doctor, his authoritative presence lending weight to the tension in the air. They often came in after long nights, discussing cases animatedly, yet today there was an edge to their conversation that spoke of panic. "Do you have a table for us? It's urgent," the mother said, her voice trembling. Emma led them to a booth at the far end, driven by instincts she hadn't fully embraced until now. As she took their order, she listened intently, the words piercing through her previous resolve. Their son, a promising athlete, had collapsed during practice. Hours had passed with hushed exchanges of fear and uncertainty coloring every sentence. The moment she heard the details, something unlocked inside her, a drive fueled by compassion and an emerging instinct. "Do you know if he was conscious when he fell?" Emma asked, her mind racing through symptoms and possibilities she had studied but never imagined applying in real life. They responded anxiously, and Emma's heart quickened as the nurse hidden within her began to emerge. Instincts surged, and with newfound clarity she offered insight, suggesting they discuss symptoms with the attending physician at the hospital. To her surprise, the father's eyes narrowed. "You seem to know a lot for a waitress," he noted, skepticism lining his words. The comment hit her with a mix of embarrassment and defiance. Just a waitress, she thought, feeling the weight of her known identity clash with the woman she was learning to become. But in that moment, she decided she wouldn't shrink from the opportunity. "I've studied some of these scenarios." It felt audacious, a revelation that was as shaky as it was empowering. Their concern began to soften. "You think you could help?" the mother asked, her pleading eyes searching Emma's for assurance. "I can connect with the head physician. I'll help get you to him," she affirmed. The words that left her mouth pierced the air in the diner, intertwining courage with hope. Out of the diner, Emma felt a sense of determination wash over her, forcing her to confront not only her place in that moment, but also her aspirations. She realized this wasn't just a fleeting encounter. It was a test of her convictions, and a chance to prove to herself that she was more than her fears.
As she took her own advice and sprang into action, she could no longer ignore the transformation happening inside her. Would she embrace the moment and seize this unforeseen chance to carve a path towards her dreams, or retreat back into the shadows of self-doubt? The answer awaited her just beyond the door, and with every step she moved closer to the woman she wanted to become, knowing every decision now
Had greater stakes. But her newfound resolution faced an unexpected challenge. There was someone waiting for her in the parking lot, and it was none other than Jack. Emma's heart raced. What was he doing here, she thought? Did he sense her internal shift, or was he here for something entirely different? The confrontation loomed ahead, and she braced herself for whatever revelation was about to unfold. Emma stepped outside the diner, the sun's harsh rays contrasting sharply with the emotional turmoil swirling inside her. Jack leaned casually against his car, arms crossed, a hint of concern etched across his face. Her heart quickened. She felt exposed, as if the very essence of her ambivalence was laid bare. "Hey," Jack said, his voice steady but laced with tension. "I was hoping to catch you before your shift ended. Can we talk?" The weight of his gaze was palpable, igniting a surge of anxiety. Did he see through her facade? Could he sense the threads of her transformation unraveling, exposing the dreams she had tried so hard to keep concealed? Taking a deep breath, Emma nodded. "Sure, what's on your mind?" "Listen, I've been thinking about what we talked about the other night, about you wanting to pursue medicine," he began, his expression softening as he continued. "You really lit up when you spoke about it. I think you could be amazing at that." His words resonated within her, a strange combination of encouragement and pressure. "Yeah, well, I'm just a waitress. What do I know about being amazing?" she replied, her defensiveness creeping in. A facade of modesty wrapped tightly around her, but inside, a storm of potential flickered to life. "You know more than you think," Jack countered, a hint of intensity fueling his argument. "I saw how you reacted to that family, Emma. You have a way of connecting, of understanding. That's a quality not everyone has." His conviction unraveled the doubts she had carried like chains. She knew the thrill of listening to the parents' predicament, felt the urgency of their situation course through her veins. This wasn't just about the boy. It was about her choosing to step into a role that felt powerful yet frightening. The confrontation turned personal as they stood there in the parking lot. "I think you're scared to take the leap," he said, his eyes locking onto hers. "It's easier to stay where you are, to cling to what you know. But maybe you need to confront that fear. Maybe that's where the real growth starts." Jack's words struck deep, reverberating within her like a truth she had avoided for years. "What if I fail?" she whispered, her voice barely escaping her lips. "What if you don't?" he countered gently, the unwavering certainty in his tone pressing against her uncertainty like a lifeline. "You can't predict the future, but you can shape it." For a moment, Emma felt the starkness of her reality peeling away, revealing a horizon of possibilities. The confrontation turned personal as they stood there in the parking lot. "I think you're scared to take the leap," he said, his eyes locking onto hers. "It's easier to stay where you are, to cling to what you know. But maybe you need to confront that fear. Maybe that's where the real growth starts." Jack's words struck deep, reverberating within her like a truth she had avoided for years. "What if I fail?" she whispered, her voice barely escaping her lips. "What if you don't?" he countered gently, the unwavering certainty in his tone pressing against her uncertainty like a lifeline. "You can't predict the future, but you can shape it." For a moment, Emma felt the starkness of her reality peeling away, revealing a horizon of possibilities. Vision of herself as a doctor flashed in her mind, a vivid picture filled with purpose and meaning. But then came the familiar whisper of self-doubt, clambering to regain control. "I don't have the right background," she began, each word heavy with the weight of her past. And then the moment shifted. She recalled the parents' fearful faces, glimpse of anguish etched into their features, pleading for answers. It hit her then. Her hesitation to act when their child needed someone to advocate, someone who possessed knowledge, could be what held her back from becoming that someone. As if sensing her internal struggle, Jack leaned forward slightly, challenging her walls. What would it take for you to pursue your dream? What steps could you take starting today? Emma sighed, grappling with an overwhelming swirl of emotions. I don't know. Right now, I need to help them. I need to ensure their son gets the best possible care. He deserves that. With that proclamation, her heart began racing as clarity enveloped her. The choice was suddenly clear. She wouldn't allow herself to cower when she could make a difference. She had voiced her intentions to connect the family with the hospital, but perhaps this wasn't about their son anymore. It was about her stepping forward, not just for him, but for herself. I guess I need to start believing in myself, she said softly, the determination rising within her like steam from a freshly poured cup of coffee. Let's start there, Jack encouraged, a smile of pride breaking through his earlier anxiety. Believe in your potential, Emma. I can't wait to see you flourish. For the first time in her life, Emma felt the tendrils of her past starting to dissolve under the light of possibility. But just then, the unresolved tension in the air thickened once more. The parents' urgent voices echoed again in her mind, an unspent reservoir of purpose still waiting to be tapped into. She turned quickly to Jack, heart thudding with a mix of fear and exhilaration. I need to go to the hospital, she declared, ready to leap into the unknown. Yet, as she moved toward her car, the reality of her decision weighed heavily. Stepping into her role as more than a waitress demanded more than ambition. It meant fully confronting her identity, one that included all her complexities and fear. Where to now? Jack asked, following closely. I'll figure it out, Emma replied. The words felt exhilarating yet daunting. In that moment, she knew one thing. This path wouldn't be easy, but the first step toward her own growth had been taken. The ambiguity of what lay ahead was paired with the thrill of unearthing her capabilities. Yet another realization flickered in her mind, an inkling of how this choice could stir new challenges and complications. How would Jack respond when he learned that she had a plan unraveling, one that revealed secrets deeper than either of them anticipated? And as they drove away, Emma was ready to face the truth, each mile edging her closer to not only saving a life, but also discovering her own. The hospital loomed in front of them, its stark architecture a juxtaposition to the soft glow of hope that radiated from Emma's determination. As she parked and stepped out of the car, the cacophony of beeping machines and distant voices engulfed her, a soundscape of urgency and desperation. Emma's heart raced. With each step through the sliding glass doors, it felt as though she were crossing a threshold into a reality that had long eluded her. Are you sure you're ready for this? Jack's voice trailed behind her, simmering with concern. His protective demeanor both comforted and frustrated her. She turned, meeting his gaze, and saw a flicker of uncertainty mirrored in his eyes. I have to be, she replied, a newfound resolve anchoring her words. This isn't just about me anymore. The line at check-in was long, stretching around the corner. As she stood waiting, impatience swirled within her. Lost in thought, she recalled the boy's frail face, the unyielding stream of questions that had flooded from his panicked parents. They needed her. And even if she was not yet a doctor, her empathy could be a tool, a precious window into their world that allowed her to bridge the gap between desperation and hope. Right, what's the plan? Jack asked, shifting on his feet, sensing her nervous energy. I need to get information about the case, Emma said, her cheeks tinged with a mix of anxiety and excitement. If I'm going to help, I have to know what they're dealing with. The reality struck her vividly. She didn't just want to be a cog in the machinery of the system. She wanted to be a catalyst for change, to spark a difference where chaos reigned. At the reception desk, Emma took a breath and engaged with the nurse, her voice steady. I'm here about the Thompson case. But the nurse's impassive expression abruptly halted her words. "Are you family?" she asked, her tone curiously flat. "Well, no, but—" "Can't help you then," the nurse replied, her gaze flicking back to the computer screen, leaving Emma feeling invisible and frustrated. Emma felt her step falter. The weight of her intentions suddenly felt heavier. How could she help when the gatekeepers of information were so impenetrable? Her thoughts raced. She was accustomed to barriers, but this one felt insurmountable. "What are you thinking?" Jack's voice pulled her back to the present. His eyes scanned her face, sensing the turmoil brewing beneath her exterior. "I need to find a way to break through," she replied, firming her resolve. "There has to be someone who can help me understand what they're going through." Then she remembered the compassion she had shown at the diner, how she had gone above and beyond to connect with the customers. Maybe this was no different. "This may sound crazy," she hesitated, thinking through her words, weighing the pros and the cons. "But I could possibly reach out to a doctor, someone who might listen." Jack's eyebrows raised, uncertainty and respect mingling in his expression. "And how do you plan to do that?" "Connections," she said, her heart pounding with the thrill of taking initiative. "I can look into the online medical forums. They might lead me to someone who knows the parents or someone in the ward." As they navigated toward the hospital cafe to grab a momentary respite and strategize over coffee, Emma felt a deep sense of clarity. Each step was purposeful, every movement a commitment to dismantling her insecurities and finding solutions. But just as she felt the fog of doubt begin to lift from her mind, a fleeting glance at a far-off doctor in scrubs sparked something extraordinary. He appeared distressed and was pacing. Abruptly, something clicked within Emma. A surge of instinct urged her forward. This was an individual in need of connection. Perhaps she could offer a listening ear, a moment of empathy before he retreated back into the chaos of his world. What if her ability to relate could uncover crucial information? "Wait here," she instructed Jack, urgency firing her feet into motion. "Emma, don't!" She didn't seize his warning as she sprinted towards the doctor, her voice rising above the ambient hospital chatter. "Excuse me, doctor, can I talk to you?" The instant she engaged him, she felt the shift. But would he feel the same? Would her boldness lead to an unknown threshold for both of them? As he turned, Emma held her breath, ready to face the unexpected consequences of her daring decision. What would he reveal? What truths lay beneath the doctor's guarded demeanor? Her heart raced, not just from uncertainty, but from the exhilarating possibility of discovering her own potential in the process. The doctor paused, mid-stride, and turned to face her, his eyes narrowing slightly under the fluorescent lights. Emma felt the weight of his gaze, a mixture of surprise and curiosity reflecting back at her. There was something almost magnetic in the tension, a moment suspended between uncertainty and the potential for connection. "Who are you?" he asked, his voice clipped but not unkind. "Emma, I was just," she stammered, trying to gather her thoughts amidst the adrenaline coursing through her. "I'm here at the hospital, trying to understand the Thompson case. I just thought maybe you could help." He hesitated, an internal struggle etched on his face. Emma could see he was overwhelmed, a stark contrast to the composed image she had built up in her mind of a doctor, master of the chaos. "I don't have time for this," he said, the firmness of his tone making her heart sink. But something sparked within her. She knew she had to push through the wall he had put up. "Please," she pressed, "I'm not looking for anything official. I just want to understand, so I can help. The family. They're scared and confused. I can be a support, but I need to know what's happening." His eyes flickered with a brief flash of something. Was it sympathy? Frustration? Emma couldn't tell. The pause felt excruciatingly long, filled with unspoken words hanging in the air like heavy mist. "What do you think you can do?" he finally asked, skepticism creeping into his voice. "I empathize," she said, her resolve solidifying. "Maybe I can facilitate communication, help them articulate their concerns." A frown on his face twisted into something softer the instant he saw the genuine passion behind her eyes. It was like a fissure in a dam. He was holding back so much, but in that moment, the pressure of her sincerity compelled him to relent slightly. "Fine, I could use an extra set of ears," he conceded, his voice low. "But you have to understand, this isn't a game. The stakes are high. If you're going to help, you need to be ready for the truth." "I am," she replied, feeling a surge of purpose. This was her moment, the chance to transition from a bystander in the shadows to an active participant in a life-altering journey. "Okay," he sighed, his shoulders easing just slightly. "Follow me." Emma walked beside him, adrenaline spinning her thoughts into a kaleidoscope of determination. The stark hospital corridors felt less daunting now, as if she was stepping into a world where her intuition and resolve could actualize into tangible support. As they reached the door to an office, he turned to face her with a serious expression. "What's your background?" "I'm a waitress for now, but I've been studying healthcare on my own." The look he gave her was part disbelief, part curiosity. "You're not a medical professional then. Are you sure you can handle what you're about to see?" "I'm here to learn," she shot back, the certainty in her voice fueled by a flame of newfound confidence. "And to help them." With that, he pushed open the door to reveal a cramped office strewn with charts and packed with patients in distress. There were echoes of desperate voices seeking answers, making her heart thump louder. "Listen intently, and don't interrupt," he instructed, guiding her into the chaotic reality of medical consultation, where the rawness of pain and fear erupted in every corner. Emma held her breath, eyes wide, as a woman recounted the symptoms of her child, urgency etched into every word she spoke. The doctor's probing questions drew out more details, dissecting fears and vulnerabilities. In that moment, Emma felt every heartbeat of the case intertwining with her own as she absorbed the atmosphere. The desperation for answers, the uncertainty of pain, and above all, the sheer fragility of life. It struck her with ruthless clarity. She was on the precipice of something monumental, stepping beyond her ordinary life to become involved in the critical tug-of-war between helplessness and recovery. With every moment, Emma knew she was shedding layers of self-doubt, transforming turbulence into action. "And what's your role in this?" A voice broke through her contemplation, jolting her back to the present. The woman in the office was staring directly at her, apprehension evident in her gaze. With the eyes of the room upon her, Emma's breath hitched slightly. Here lay the juncture between her identity as a waitress and the blossoming leader she was striving to become. How would she define herself in this moment? Would she revert back to the girl who used to blend into the background, or would she step forward as someone ready to share the weight of their burden? But as panic threatened to unravel her newfound confidence, she realized it wasn't the time for hesitation. It was time to take her own place in this story. Just then, the door swung open again, and another frantic parent rushed into the room, shaking Emma from her thoughts. Chaos erupted, and she felt the swirling tide pushing her deeper into the whirlwind of medicine and emotion. What unexpected challenge awaited her within this storm of need? Emma steadied her breath, preparing to confront the moment that would demand everything she had, and perhaps reveal the true extent of her capabilities. Emma's heart raced as the new parent burst into the room, their eyes wide with fear, clutching a small, listless child wrapped in a blanket. The atmosphere thickened with urgency. The doctor, whose name she still didn't know but felt an unwelcome affinity toward, shot to attention, instantly shifting from casual authority to focused professionalism. Emma watched as he took command in an instant, his demeanor transforming, the personal struggle she had witnessed melting away under the weight of responsibility. "Place him on the examination table," he instructed, his voice steady and sharp with authority. "We need to assess him immediately." The parent hesitated, fear contorting their features. "But he's not breathing well." Emma hesitated too, unsure of how to support this encounter, but driven by a ferocity to act. "Breathe with him," she said softly, stepping up to the panicked parent.
Encourage him. Make sure he hears your voice. It will make a difference. She realized that she had instinctively assumed the role of a facilitator, someone who could bridge the gap between the frantic emotions of the parents and the clinical focus of the medical staff. The doctor shot her a quick look at her interjection, a moment of uncertainty flashing in his gaze before he returned to his task with renewed vigor. As the child was placed on the examination table, the doctor began his initial assessment. Emma edged closer, her eyes glued to the scene unfolding. She watched for cues, absorbing every action, every nuance. Perhaps she could learn something from this chaos. Perhaps she could contribute more than she believed. "Can you tell me what led up to this?" the doctor asked firmly, his voice steady despite the urgency of the situation. The parent stammered through their concerns about sudden wheezing, a growing cough that had diminished the child's energy over the past few days. As they spoke, Emma's mind raced. She found herself processing the symptoms, piecing them together like some dark puzzle, and an inkling of insight began to bubble up within her. "Lung infection," she suddenly uttered, surprising even herself. The words emerged with a clarity that made the doctor and parent pause, a vibrant tension filling the air. If there's a cough, perhaps there's something that's been overlooked in his history. An allergy? A recent illness? The doctor's eyes flicked toward her in surprise, but this time it was different. There was a spark, a glimmer of respect. "What makes you say that?" he challenged, not out of skepticism, but as a test. "I've seen children in my neighborhood get similar symptoms. It often masks something deeper," she replied, her voice rising with newfound conviction. "We need to consider every angle." The weight of her own emotions pushed her to stand firm, anchored by an unfamiliar reservoir of courage. The doctor nodded, his expression shifting as a new layer of urgency enveloped him. "Let's run tests for that," he said. And in doing so, she felt as though she had contributed to the momentum of the moment. It wasn't just about providing support anymore. Emma was actively engaging in the diagnosis. The parent looked at her, their eyes wide with gratitude and fear, and for the first time, Emma sensed the power of what she was becoming capable of. She was no longer just a waitress. She was a lifeline, a conduit for potential solutions. As the tests were ordered and further discussions unfolded, Emma felt the room pulsating with a mix of hope and despair. And as she continued to engage with the situation, a thought began to stir in the back of her mind. Perhaps she truly had a talent for understanding these situations, for seeing the broader patterns amid chaos. But equally terrifying was the reality that this wasn't just an intellectual exercise. Now there were lives at stake. With the doctor focusing intently on the child, Emma couldn't help but wonder, was she ready for the repercussions of her involvement? What if she made a mistake? What if her insights turned out to be misguided? Before she could further examine her thoughts, the doctor abruptly turned to her and asked, "Emma, are you ready for more responsibility?" A silence ensued, heavy with expectation. This was a pivotal moment for her, one that could define her path. The stakes had escalated, revealing a crossroads laden with uncertainty. She was poised on the brink of greater involvement, a leap that could transcend beyond her old identity. But with this realization, the exhilarating energy she felt soon became a collision with dread. What would happen if she fell? Emma inhaled deeply, and in that breath she understood the gravity of her decision. "Yes," she said, voice steadier than before, "I'm ready." And as the next emergency call echoed from the hallway, Emma braced herself for the next wave of challenges that lay ahead, uncertain whether she was equipped to handle the demand. But one thing she knew for certain: the metamorphosis into someone more powerful and purposeful had already begun. What awaited her on this unpredictable journey? The sound of hurried footsteps echoed down the dimly lit corridor, almost drowning out Emma's racing thoughts. Adrenaline surged through her veins as she sensed a shift. She was not just an observer anymore.
She was at the threshold of something profound. As the doctor prepared to engage in the next emergency, Emma felt the weight of responsibility press down on her shoulders. She had spoken up before, but it had been a singular moment of impulsive bravery. Now she grappled with whether she could truly sustain that clarity in the face of escalating stakes. The next child rushed into the room, a girl, barely 6, her small frame trembling as her parents translated their fear into frantic words. "She hasn't been herself for days. She barely opens her eyes." It was enough to conjure the same knot of anxiety she had felt moments ago. Before the doctor could respond, Emma instinctively found herself at the forefront again. "Can you tell me about her symptoms? Is she coughing or having trouble breathing?" The words flowed, surprising even her as they rang with authority. "She had a fever and was tired, but it was her eyes. They've been more glazed over, hauntingly distant," the father said, emotions crackling in the air. Emma nodded, fostering empathy as she leveled her gaze with the father's. "It's critical we stay calm. Let's focus on her right now." She ushered her focus toward the girl, imagining her world, filled with dolls and laughter, now clouded by something unseen. The doctor turned to her again, his brow accumulating lines of concentration. "Emma, put your thoughts together for a diagnosis." In this explicit challenge, clarity crystallized within her like ice coming to form. "If she's lethargic and distant with a fever, we might need to look at viral infections or a possible severe reaction, like a neurological symptom. It could be far deeper if not treated correctly," she expressed, her own pulse quickening. The stakes weren't just theoretical anymore, they were woven within the fabric of her conviction. Now there was no hesitation in his voice as the doctor agreed and reframed his questions. The pace of the examination sped up, and Emma focused with laser precision. She felt anchored in her choices as knowledge transformed her fear into a burgeoning sense of competence. Turning her attention to the girl's father, she asked, "Does she typically have a history of infections or allergies?" The answer hung in the air as they grappled with her progression. Through the doctor's calm directives and Emma's supportive presence, a team formed seamlessly. Her heart swelled with purpose. Each inquiry turned into a thread, weaving her deeper into this tapestry of healing. Yet, as the doctor prepared to run tests, the underlying fear of missteps clawed at her confidence. What if her intuition led them astray? They were not just dealing with symptoms, they were navigating families' hopes. Just then, Emma caught sight of the girl's eyes, cloudy yet alert, searching for connection amid the chaos. It ignited something within her. She reached out and gently squeezed the child's hand, her voice soft but steady. "You can fight this. You're stronger than you know." In that moment, Emma felt the invisible strands of her identity stretch, adjusting with her newfound purpose. It wasn't merely about voicing facts. It was about offering comfort, unyielding strength as they collectively battled uncertainty. When the doctor assigned Emma specific roles in the ongoing evaluation, she nodded, feeling her footing firmly established. "I can help," she affirmed, determination solidifying with each heartbeat. The whirlwind of the emergency room continued around her, patience and uncertainty cultivating a fervor that stoked her resolve. She was more than a bystander. She was an active participant in this delicate interplay of life and health. Yet, as they awaited the test results, an unsettling thought gripped her heart once more. Would this newfound power be enough? With each child's life hanging in the balance, she had to confront her worst fears, to truly engage, understanding that their fate intertwined with her decisions. Suddenly, another nurse rushed in, breathless and insistent. "We need help in the triage area. A critical case has arrived." Emma's pulse quickened again, the gravity of the moment bearing down upon her. This was the moment she had prepared for, the heart of the storm calling her name. Would she be strong enough to meet it head-on, or would the responsibility consume her? Her resolve solidified. "What do I need to do?" she asked the doctor, ready to face the next wave head-on. Little did she know, her hidden talents were about to be tested on a scale she could never imagine. The stakes of her journey were rising. Something transformative awaited just beyond the horizon.
With every frenetic heartbeat echoing in the sterile air, Emma felt the weight of the moment sink deep into her core. The cries and shouts from outside the triage area seeped through, a distressing symphony that thrummed like a war drum, each note reminding her of the fragility of life and the urgency of her newfound mission. "Emma, let's go. They need us in the triage area," the doctor called out. His voice sliced through the air with an urgency that snapped her into focus. She rushed to follow him, pushing past the fear that had wavered beneath her resolve, vowing to embrace the chaos waiting ahead. Together, they moved to a crowded area flooded with medical personnel, all engaged in a whirlwind of activity. A patient was being wheeled in, a young boy barely conscious. His limbs were limp and panic flickered in the parents' eyes. Emma felt her heart lurch as she caught sight of
The boy's pale face, a haunting reflection of innocence underestimated by illness. "Emma, we need someone to get vitals," the doctor directed, breaking her reverie. "And I need updates from the family." "Right." The word came coupled with a determination that flared within her. This was it, her moment to actualize all the resolve she had gathered over the past few days. "Can you tell me what happened?" she asked the boy's parents as she scanned the room, settling them with her unwavering gaze. With fearful clarity, they recounted snippets of how he had collapsed during a soccer game. All earlier signs of his illness had been overshadowed by the thrill of activity, a secret she sensed might be crucial. Bringing compassion to the forefront, Emma nodded, engaging them. "Right now, you are doing great by being here. Just hold on to that energy. It'll help him." She leaned in closer so her voice remained steady, anchoring their anxiety with a calm presence. "Is there anything he has struggled with before? Allergies? Past illnesses?" The mother hesitated, a mixture of fear and uncertainty clouding her brow. "He had some respiratory issues last year." Emma felt a spark of recognition. With the knowledge she had gathered, the pieces began clicking into place. "That's important. We need to evaluate that right away." As she relayed their responses, she felt the doctor's approving gaze resting firmly on her, a confirmation of her place in this chaotic mosaic of medicine. "Good. I'm going to need you to take blood pressure and get a pulse ox reading," he said, thrusting her deeper into action. "Let's keep moving. He needs us." As she maneuvered through the medical equipment and maneuvered carefully around the medical team, her heart thrummed with purpose. She repeated the parents' input via radio to the ER team, speaking with newfound authority, her voice flooding with conviction. Then, stepping forward to the boy, she realized that in just a few hours she had evolved. She wasn't merely a waitress anymore. She had shed that identity in the heart of the chaos and claimed the mantle of a burgeoning healer. "Keep talking to him," she instructed the parents, looking straight into their eyes with genuine empathy. "He needs to hear your voices." The doctor made quick work of assessing the child, ensuring that Emma's emerging confidence intermingled with the urgency of the situation. Under his guidance, she directed others to retrieve additional equipment, all while she kept her focus locked on the boy. When the readings came back, the doctor's frown deepened. "We need to start IV fluids and check for any allergies while monitoring lung function," he instructed, turning to her and handed her a clipboard filled with medical terminology. "Can you get this to the supply station?" "Yes," Emma replied, purposefully moving through the labyrinth of the hospital, still following her instincts. She maneuvered through gurneys and the ebb of frantic personnel. Each moment felt like a testament to her growth. Each step pulled her deeper into a reality she had once believed out of reach. Back at the triage area, she handed the supplies over and returned to the boy's side, just as the doctor began administering treatment. Emma's heart raced. She found herself so buried in the moment that the underlying self-doubt began to dissolve. "We'll need to keep an eye on him closely. Vital signs can change quickly," the doctor instructed, his voice firm yet reassuring. With each heartbeat that echoed within the room, Emma felt a swell of confidence. She was now part of this team, a dynamic essential to saving the boy's life, a paradigm so foreign just days before.
She caught the glint of hope in the parents' eyes when they saw their son receive care, and for the first time, she truly understood the power of connection. Moments turned to minutes, and as the child began stabilizing, the urgency in the air shifted. Emma's heart swelled. In the eye of the storm, she felt the currents of doubt reversing. She was transforming under pressure, evolving into someone capable of understanding not just the medical necessities, but the emotional intricacies that held families in suspense. When the boy's pulse returned to a stable rhythm and color slowly crept back into his cheeks, Emma felt a rush of triumph coursing through her. This was more than a shift in identity, it was validation. Time stretched as the doctor rallied the medical team around her, redirecting their attention to the next case. The sobering reminder that they weren't done yet simmered on the horizon. "Emma, your instinct and ability to connect were crucial," the doctor said, allowing a moment for the gravity of what had just occurred to settle in. "You did well today." Her breath hitched at the weight of his words, resonating through the very core of her being. Every doubt she had faced melted into brilliance, illuminating the path ahead. No longer defined by her past as a waitress, she was shaping her future, crafting purpose from a cacophony of chaos. As the next emergency summoning echoed outside, Emma steadied her resolve, adrenaline spurring her forward. Whatever lay ahead, she embraced it with unwavering conviction. She was ready, prepared for the unfolding journey that would demand all her courage, determined to step into her purpose and fulfill her dreams, ready to confront each new challenge that awaited. Would she become the doctor she had always aspired to be? The answer surged within her, a fierce knowing. She was on the right path, and there was no turning back now. The noise faded, leaving only the pulse of her heart's rhythm, each beat reaffirming her place in that world of healing. Emma had conquered her doubts, transformed uncertainty into action, and emerged triumphant. Now the open road stretched before her, and every step heralded the promise of achievement, echoing her journey of growth, one that she would continue for the rest of her life. As she prepared to tackle whatever came next, Emma smiled. This was wonderful.
Just the beginning. If you enjoyed this gripping tale of transformation, you need to subscribe now. This is the moment to show your support for the channel and the power of personal overcoming stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and spread these incredible journeys far and wide. Comment below with your reactions and theories about Emma's journey and her future. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Don't wait even one more second. Let's get ready for the adventures that await.